You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday, the very first Monday of the month of December. Butters is on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm glad to be here. Merry Christmas.
Merry almost Christmas to you. Got the tree lighting ceremony in Rainbow City this evening. You already pointed out.
I am excited. My girls are playing in that. The Southside Band and a whole bunch of the community getting together. Oh yeah, and concert tomorrow night, and then the Gadsden Parade this Saturday. Oh yeah,
that's good stuff. All right, did you have a good weekend?
It was a great weekend.
Good. How
about you?
I did. How about good enough? I can say that. I actually slept late on Saturday morning. I went like all the way till 6:45. It was awesome. That's late for me, just so you know. But it was good. It was good. All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. 3 o'clock today, Congressman Mo Brooks is going to call in. I texted him last night. And I said, hey, with regards to the situation getting George Santos expelled from Congress, I want his thoughts on this because we're going to unpack this as part of the First Dipper. But I want the thoughts of the man who served with these people, who also recognizes the ins and the outs, and he's also an attorney. So he's got all the angles. I want to hear his thoughts. Congressman Mo Brooks calling in at 3 o'clock. And then, let's do a triple dipper. Hit it, Butters.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, clean up on aisle 7. That's what I'm calling it. Clean up on aisle 7. Some of y'all are having flashbacks to working in the grocery store when you were a kid. But nonetheless, clean up on aisle 7. What am I talking about? Political cleanups. I'm talking about the fact that we have seen a number of things happen, in recent years where it just appears to me there's obviously a need to drain the swamp. We always hear that. But then what does that even mean? And oh, by the way, who's content to really do that? Well, right now, Republicans are the only ones kicking out their own people and taking people off of chairmanships, and Dems never seem to do it. But I want to unpack that in greater detail, talk about the ins, the outs, the politics of it, and everything. Clean up on aisle 7. That's number 1 of the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I kept reading stories this morning. And by the time I had a handful or so, I realized that I was thinking to myself, well, how's that work? Why would they? How's that work? So that's the whole name of that's the Dipper now. How's that work? I got a series of stories, some of which are going to crack you up, others are going to make you just mad because you look at it and go, well, that was an asinine decision. That was some level of jackassery. And yes, we're going to talk about it. How's that work? Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, Butters and I were just watching a press conference on the TV a few minutes ago. There are tensions around the world, not the least of which are in faraway places that involve the Middle East, Iran, and other players in different. Anyway, the bottom line is there's flashpoints, and I've said before on this show, you have to watch the flashpoints. You have to be aware that while you think that tensions are simmering beneath the surface, all it takes is one flashpoint, and things go to the whole next level. There are some flashpoints on the world stage right now, and we need to be aware of them. Are you thinking about Turkey involving itself in other places? They're a NATO ally. Why would they? Are you thinking about North Korea? Or are you thinking about, oh, by the way, Iran? And what about the attacks on our U.S. forces? Lots of them. Flashpoints. We'll talk about that. Number 3, Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over here to my comments, my opening monologue, the Rightside Way monologue. Every single day, by the way, sponsored by the folks at Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics all throughout our listening area that just does amazingly good work. Southern Immediate Care is in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Attala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area, and they are open 7 days a week, y'all. And this is who I use personally, and I mean that. So you check them out. Southern Immediate Care, proud to have them as a sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. All right, let me jump in here. So I used to spend a great deal of time in the woods. I don't get near the time I used to, but I still love the outdoors. It's probably why I drive a Jeep. So I can take the top off every once in a while and get what I call Jeep therapy. My time in the great outdoors, though, has been curtailed in recent years. I used to do a lot of backpacking in the Rockies, the Smokies, along the lower Appalachian Trail, in the mountains here in North Alabama, sometimes with groups, sometimes alone. The cool thing is when you get out there and you get acclimated, you can actually begin to sense when the weather changes. You can feel the barometric pressure. I mean, you're in tune with the slight changes in the breezes. You know when it's best to go ahead and pitch your tent, gather up some dry firewood before you lose the option, got to plop down in the wet and the cold. When you get to the place that you can read the winds and gauge the coming weather, you know you're kind of in the zone, if you will. Some call it having a weather eye. Keep a weather eye on the horizon, they used to say back in the days of the sailing ships. You may have heard the phrase used in the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. It's also used in the classic novel Treasure Island, when an old pirate named Billy Bones was waiting for Long John Silver. He told young Jim Hawkins, keep a weather eye open for a seafaring man with one leg. A weather eye means vigilant attentiveness. If you look it up online, you can find the definition. It basically says you are vigilant, you are watchful, you are attentive, you have the trait of being observant and paying attention. Well, the same is true in a different way. I mean, me personally, I do a lot of public speaking. I look forward to being with another group this coming Friday night. Churches, schools, political gatherings, veterans events, groups as small as a handful to groups in the thousands. And at times, you get to where you know you can just kind of read your audience. You can tell when a message is resonating, when you've made a point that was well received or not. You can assess in the moment if the point you made or the analogy or the summation or for that matter the joke was even picked up by the audience, not by the laughter or the clapping or any measure of overt response. Sometimes it's just like a sense of things. You can just feel it. I remember well the same sense I had when I was running for office. My chief nemesis was the teachers union. Lord, they hated me. They threw everything and the kitchen sink at me, including fake polling. I remember once when a guy called me ostensibly to help. I found out later he was a shill for the teachers union. He just wanted to make me aware, hey, Phil, hey, showed a poll that was showing me way down and likely going to lose the race by a substantial margin. Here it is. It's in the numbers. It's right here. But see, I wasn't fazed. I already had a true sense of it. I could read my district. I was everywhere. I had a team that was everywhere. I already knew. I knew the polls were just the opposite. And yeah, I won that race by a healthy 3 to 4 point spread, if I recall. It's like I had a weather eye for politics. Well, I'm there again. I can sense a change in the wind. I mean, there's movement in the political atmosphere, and I don't have to be a pollster or a pundit to lay it out. I can sense it. And I'm betting that many of you can too. Everywhere I turn, I can see and hear and experience people that are awakening to the realities of what the left has been trying to do for the last few years. What about you? This week, the national political scene is going to come to Alabama as several of the lead GOP candidates for president gather on the campus of the University of Alabama for the 4th GOP presidential primary debate. I plan to be there. And I've been sensing a shift in the political winds. And I'm telling you, we better be keeping our political weather eye on the horizon, my friends. My sense is there's several layers of this unchartable feeling. There are those on the conservative side who are right now feeling somewhat vindicated that other people in our arena are finally seeing the depth of the left schemes that we've been talking about forever. They've been in the fight for a while. They bear the scars of it, but they're happy to have the reinforcements. I'm seeing more and more young folks, too, folks in their 20s, who have begun to rally for conservative principles that even their own families might have sort of eschewed during their upbringing. I'm seeing heavily Hispanic and black districts that are actually seeing a surge in Republican votes that have never been there before. They realize they've been gaslighted, taken advantage of by liberals who just counted on them as sort of being automatically in the bag with their votes. Then there's the moderates. Moderates who've never been overly troubled have been willing to concede and accept things because, it lowers the rancor, makes things more peaceful. Just go along to get along. But in the past few years, some of those moderates have had their own businesses shut down as, quote, non-essential. They've been forced to get a shot and watch their kids' educations become a political football for the unions and the social justice warriors. They've seen their economy gerrymandered. Yeah, they've woken up. Then there's another group, the apolitical. Those who have up to now chosen to stay out of all of it because they hate politics, they don't like watching the news, and suddenly, they've seen that a local mayor or a school board member who is allegedly not affiliated with any party can put limitations on their lives that have spurred some new interest. They've put books in their kids' libraries that just would never be allowed there. I'm also seeing, by the way, and hearing from independents, the quote, "I vote for the man, not the party," folks. I get that. Character matters, but so does the team that the character plays for. So I'm just telling you, 2023 is likely the last time that any of those folks will put both Democrat and Republican signs in their yards at the same time. They've had it. They've had it. Like a lot of folks, they've just had it. And lastly, you guessed it, there are also longtime Democrats who don't even recognize the party they've always believed in. Their families have always voted Democrat, and they feel abandoned. They want to be more patriotic, more fiscally conservative, more pro-life, and they do not feel welcome at all anymore among the ranks of the liberal side of the politics on the left. So what I'm telling you is, all of this is happening separately, but yet not separate. When you've got Democrats becoming former Democrats and independents not so independent anymore, and when you've got the apolitical suddenly waking up to politics, and we got the youth and the Hispanic vote and the black vote all beginning to wake up and say, wait, we're not in the bag for you just because you say we are. When you see all that, it's like you can feel the newness to the outdoors. It's like the light changed a little bit, like the breeze rose ever so slightly, like you can feel that barometric pressure shifting, just kind of feel it. And all of it adds up to a change in the weather. A change you can't put your eyes on, but your mind sure is telling you it's afoot. So in this case, it's the political winds. There's a renewed boldness and a willingness to espouse the values of conservatism that I've not seen since the Tea Party movement back in 2010. So keep a weather eye on the horizon, my friends. The political winds are blowing, and there's a shift on the political forecast that I believe is about to happen. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, I don't think I'm being overly optimistic. I don't think so. I'm just telling you what I'm sensing. When you see that much trending, that much movement, that much awakening, when you feel that much energy, when you feel that much synergy for that matter, you cannot help but deny that it's there. The question is, can we grab it, advance it, and bring it to the next level before the election gets here? More to come. Keep a weather eye on your politics. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Everything.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it was quite the eventful weekend if you're an Alabama fan. I'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. Just going to go ahead and just clear the air, address the elephant in the room.
Ba-dum-dum.
You like that? No. So I still find myself thinking, yeah, about that dropped punt from the Iron Bowl. I mean, the world as we know it will be a different place. But anyway, congratulations to all you Bammers. Congratulations to you. SEC championship in the bag, which, by the way, I will just say this. Georgia got outplayed. There was no way around it. Georgia just got flat outplayed. I don't know if you had a chance to see any. A lot of it was just listening to it for me because I was on the car.
I missed it. The one question I've got, if somebody could educate me, so Florida State undefeated.
Yeah.
And the main reason that they're not going to the playoffs was because their quarterback was injured?
Well, okay, so it's funny you say that.
That seems really subjective
That's
way.
Extremely subjective. And there's some screaming going on from the FSU and the ACC. I mean, there's just like some screaming. So I actually was talking to a former Alabama football player this morning, and I said, so FSU? And he went, yeah. So,
I mean, if I was the whole rest of the team, I mean, I don't know. There's so many wins, so many great, wins from the underdog that would never have occurred if that was the mentality, that we took into determining who played in the game.
I mean, so there's been times when, like, Tom Brady's out with an injury. What do you do? The Patriots sit on the bench? No, that's why you have depth. That's why you have a player's chart, a depth chart.
Before you get hate mail from right side listeners that I am not trying to pick a fight with Alabama or FSU. I am truly just trying to understand how this decision making went down.
Just help us to understand.
Yeah.
There's not much to understand. The whole system is kind of broken, and a lot of subjectivity. And the subjectivity has drawn the ire of the people who care deeply about FSU and drawn the praise of those who go to Alabama.
Could be you next year.
Just saying. Hey, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it in or call it in. Same line for both. John from Huntsville already texted in. He telling me, by the way, he said, you have to have a mini rant about how college football playoff committees made a huge jackassery decision to keep Florida State out of the playoffs. Also because Florida State beat Louisville. They are now my new favorite football team. Florida State. He's a Seminole. Hey. So he's all in. John from Huntsville. I don't know if I can make it a mini rant, though, John. All I can say is, dang, that happened, and dang, sucks to be Florida State. I don't know where else I can go with it right now because it's not going to change.
Yeah.
No one's going to take it to court and get an injunction. It's just, like, holy crap, that happened. And
I'm not smart enough on all of that to know the nuances.
Just saying. If Florida State wanted to up their game, I won't go there. I won't go there. Brian from Decatur just says, I kind of compare Biden to Nero. He's willing to burn his own country to the ground for his own personal agenda. Interesting. Fiddling while America burns. If we find out that Biden plays the violin, I'm going to be very concerned. But I'll be honest with you. This is I said it during my monologue. This coming this coming year is going to be huge, because here's the thing: we on the right side of politics, right side, get it? We on the right side of politics have got to get our game face on about who's going to be our nominee. Because if you don't like Trump, you better go ahead and realize he's probably going to be your nominee, and you just need to get over it. Otherwise, you're giving us 4 more years of Biden. If you do like Trump and he doesn't get the nomination, you better get over yourself and realize that if you don't vote for whoever takes his place, you're just giving us 4 more years of Biden. So what I'm saying is this: the primary season needs to be as contentious and just, all for the debate and get everybody busy and love your own candidate, whoop, whoop. But when it comes time to get past the primaries, you suck it up and vote for whoever you got to get Biden out of office in 2024. That's what I'm saying. By God, do not come to this show and say, well, I just can't vote for Trump. Okay, so what you're saying is you're voting for Biden. No, I'm just not going to vote at all. That is a vote for Biden. The margins were so close. It's Alabama. We don't make a difference. Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, we do. We do. Don't think for a second. The weight of the vote gets under people's skin, and they recognize and they begin to see movements and they see the trends, and they will vote, sometimes based upon what happened in the polls that closed earlier. So do not think for a second your vote doesn't matter, because the Eastern time zone is still voting once we stop. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just y'all covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama. And I mean, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. I got a bunch of texts all of a sudden, so let me check them. Probably half of them are Florida State fans. Let me see what it got. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Joe from Birmingham says, Nick Saban is a Teflon Don of college football. War Eagle. There it is. Kevin from Florence says, the FSU situation is summed up, in my opinion, as the CFP committee has a job to put forth the best product for the consumer, and that's why FSU was left at the door. Oh, wow. So what he's saying is no one wants to watch an FSU game, I guess is what he just said. Mark from Tony says, all we got to stop is mail-in ballots for Republicans to win paper ballots with military counting. With military counting, yes. You know what, that's aggravating to me. They should not ever, in my opinion, release the results of an election without having first counted the military ballots that were mailed in from overseas. JT Lacey Springs says, in addition to Florida's quarterback being injured, FSU's quarterback being injured, it was said that team strength on the schedule was weaker than Bama's and Texas. Nevertheless, the college football poll is currently an election versus an expanded elimination. Oh, JT usually puts it down there pretty good where the baby goats can get to it. Mike from Rainbow City says, is there any other side than the right side? I think not. Thank you, Mike. Wear your T-shirt proudly, my brother. Jeff from Town Creek. He says, hey, I disagree with the last statement. We're not still voting when the East Coast. You're right. I had it backwards, man. I even said it to Butters right after I got off the air. I said, wait a minute. I had that backwards. He says, we're not still voting when the East Coast closes the polls because they voted for another 5 or 6 days after the election. That's what we got to watch out for. He said, I think giving a fair election, we're going to win this landslide minus fair election. We'll never win again. That's why we got to keep our eyes on the prize. He says, and I'm driving down the road using voice activation. That's why the last text had no punctuation. That's why I was struggling with your text, Jeff. I'm reading it thinking, did I just slur that together? By the way, I am correcting myself because I said the East Coast is still voting. I think it's the other way around. We close. Am I right? And then the mountains and the Pacific time are still voting. Am I right in saying that? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Time zones just wreak havoc with me. I have more than once gone to a meeting in Georgia, found out I got my times backwards as to ahead. It's embarrassing, but there it is.
I guess for my days of flying, it is what it is.
You just cross time zones in a blink of an eye.
Everything's got to be in Zulu.
Well, you know what? If everything was in Zulu, it'd be a better gig. I can handle Zulu because it's all the same. Greenwich Mean Time, Zulu. Last one, John from Huntsville again says, Phil, I think there should at least be a T-shirt that says "Welcome to college football," where perfection means absolutely nothing. Also, Phil, congratulations on finishing in the top 50 of the Pick'em contest. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will be announcing more about that later, but thank you very much. All right, listen, number one triple dipper, clean up on aisle 7. That's what I called it. Clean up on aisle 7. Have you ever worked in a grocery store?
I have not, but I did work at a bowling alley, and that was my first ever job, and trust me, I cleaned up a lot.
So you had clean up on lane 7.
Oh, yes.
Well, so here's the deal. You hear a lot about drain the swamp. We're going to drain the swamp, and I never hear Democrats really saying that. Republicans always say it. And then what really happens? Drain the swamp. What does that even mean? First of all, the vast majority of people that run for office are good people. I am not one of those who's going to sit here and go, well, they all got elected and they became corrupt. That's crap. You can just back off of that. I'll argue it all day long. Why? Because I know a bunch of them, and I served among a bunch of them. So, no, that's not the case. But are there some bad apples in the bunch? Yeah. You can find that in ministry. You can find that in accounting. You can find that in the legal field. There's always going to be some bad apples in whatever career field you're in. Why? because your career field is made up of broken people like everything else. In the military and, wherever. That being said, we hear all this talk about drain the swamp. Okay, drain the swamp. Who do you want to go? And then once we start identifying who we want to go, how do you get them gone? Well, it is not an easy thing. Because once somebody is elected by the will of the people, then it's big, big doings for somebody else to undo the will of the people. That's what that is. Even when you impeach somebody, you are saying the will of the people to send this person here was fallible. You never should have sent him. Or since he got here, the will of the people has been co-opted or corrupted, and so we're going to deal with it. Well, okay, but then what happens if you take action to actually remove the person from office? Well, you have just literally undone the will of the people. Let me ask you this. Is there a higher standard for those who are in leadership? Sometimes, yes, there is. Biblically speaking, yes, there is. There are times when the person who has been, brought to a higher level of authority and responsibility may therefore deserve higher scrutiny and may also therefore deserve, to some degree, a slightly tougher standard to have to go by because they have offered themselves up to be in a position of, making a difference in our lives. But they do not abdicate their rights under the law. Innocent till proven guilty. Due process. The freedom of speech. The freedom of assembly. All of these things that, freedom of association. All these things that you and I take for granted sometimes, but they are still our rights. Just walking around on the street, rights. You don't abdicate those when you run for office. That's why the situation this past week with George Santos has got me going back and forth. And I'll be honest with you, I've been going back and forth. George Santos, congressman from the 3rd Congressional District of New York. The guy was just a goob. I mean, he's always been a little bit hard to read. It's something about his mannerisms, his style, his look was always like, old boy got beat up a lot as a kid is what I'm thinking. But he was still duly elected by the people. Then the question becomes, well, did he get there by hook or by crook? I mean, I don't know. Did he fraudulently obtain some finances he really didn't have in order to get other finances? Did he report things that weren't real? Did he use people's credit cards to get to the position? Well, that's the allegation. Has he been convicted? No. It's an indictment. He has the right to fight that indictment the same as anybody else. But as of last Friday, he's gone. The will of the people has been undone by members of Congress who chose to vote to expel a member of Congress for only the 6th time in the history of the United States. Y'all, out of the 6 people who have been expelled from Congress in the history of the United States, 3 of them it was because they decided to join the Confederacy. 2 of the other 6 were because they had been convicted of crimes. 1 was indicted only, George Santos. So you look at it and go, have we just set an evil precedent? Is it possible that we can undo the will of the people, cast aside their duly cast votes, because someone else decided they knew what they saw was a crime, even though the crime had not yet been processed through the judicial system? That's where we are right now with George Santos. It's a rub. And then you get into the whole politics of it. Okay, Republicans already got a super slim majority. Daggum, it just got slimmer because Democrats are now chomping at the bit to grab hold of that seat. And they'll probably get it because he flipped the seat to get it. Santos was a squishy Republican at best, but he was still a Republican. He seized a seat that had been Democrat. It's likely to go back to Democrat. And I imagine, I don't know for a fact what New York law is, but I imagine there's going to be a special election coming up in the near future. So, that being said, where are we right now? Well, that means the majority that our current Speaker of the House has to work with just got a whole lot slimmer. By 1? Yes, by 1. We only had, a dozen? So, it's all said and done, it's a dicey situation. But should they have made their decision based purely on politics? Democrats did. Democrats, largely speaking, just wanted to cut that majority down one more notch if they could. And so they cast their votes. But then there was a bunch of Republicans that joined. How many of those joined because they just couldn't stand Santos? How many of them joined because they could care less about politics and believed it was the right thing to do? And how many of them knew something that we don't know? I don't know the answer to all of that, but I'm going to give you some of it when we get back from this break. We'll take the break right now. We'll come right back, and I'll dissect some of this with you to include, oh, by the way, who else is out there that's just been hanging on that if these are the new rules, shouldn't they go too? We'll talk about it, and then conversation with former Congressman Mo Brooks on the same topic, top of the hour. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making that common sense like a superpower. All right, hey, listen, we're in number 1 of the Triple Dipper. Clean up on aisle 7, I'm calling it. And the politics involved with cleanup is something else. So coming up top of the hour, we'll have a conversation with former Congressman Mo Brooks, get his thoughts on some of this. But let me just point out to you, first of all, what Donald Trump went through while he was in office is in my opinion, only matched by what he's gone through out of office. The man was under constant assault, constant. And it was to the point that it was embarrassing to the level that Nancy Pelosi and others would go to try and take down Trump. It was like, and people coined it Trump derangement syndrome. And I think it was real. I think there was a true Trump derangement syndrome. But I look at some of what's happening now, and I don't feel that way about Biden. I don't feel that way right now about Biden. Why? Because I feel like they are being, okay, Phil, you're biased. Of course I am. But I'll tell you also, too, that I've had 20 years of practicing law where I've had no choice but to at times recognize when my client's position was not the strongest. And I can just tell you right now, Biden's position is not near as strong as what Trump's was in the claims being made. Russia, collusion. I've seen the evidence. No, you haven't. Where is it? It never showed up. Why? Because it wasn't there. Hunter Biden laptop's not real. Yes, it is. Oh, by the way, it really is. You just didn't want to talk about it. Then you find out there's all this, stuff going on in the background with, true collusion between social media companies and the actual U.S. government. But right now what we got is the impeachment inquiries against President Biden are actually still ongoing. You may not know that, but they are. But why? Because, in my opinion, they're being very judicious. Story here on Fox News came out this morning. It says House committees leading the impeachment inquiry against President Biden are expected to grill top witnesses behind closed doors this month as the investigation reaches a critical phase. All right, first up, U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf. All right, so U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf is going to be coming in to give a deposition. Why is she important? Because whistleblowers have alleged that U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf specifically sought to block investigators from being able to investigate or ask questions of President Biden about his son's Hunter's business dealings. Why would she do that? Well, there is some strong belief that there was the deep state playing favorites, and we're going to find out. Leslie Wolf also allegedly tipped off Hunter Biden's legal team ahead of a planned search of his storage unit. Interesting. Nobody bothered to tip off, the folks at Mar-a-Lago when the raid was en route. Judiciary Committee also expects to hear from top prosecutors involved in the probe regarding Hunter Biden, especially Special Counsel David Weiss, who had been denied special access or special attorney authority in his investigations. So there's that. Then we've got House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith. He's going to hold a public executive session on Tuesday that is to feature testimony from IRS whistleblowers. They're going to be defending their claims that the Hunter Biden investigation went the way it did. And then there's the House Oversight Committee, expecting Hunter Biden himself to show up for a closed-door deposition. Now, Hunter Biden's attorney got kind of cagey with it and said, no, we don't need a deposition. We want to come in for a public hearing. We'll be glad to do it in public. You know what they wanted? What they wanted was the time and place of their own choosing, first of all, and then what they also wanted was, and by the way, tell my caller I have to get him later because I have a scheduled caller coming in a few minutes, and I got to get through some of this stuff. But the reality is, you've got any number of things ongoing. Hunter Biden's attorney wants a public hearing. No, that's where all the Democrats get to say sound bites in your defense. Let him come give a deposition under oath, and after he's done that, then he can be cross-examined by all parties in public. That's the way this works. So that's probably what's going to wind up happening. Anyway, Comer's also got that laid on right now, and the contentiousness of it has been pretty obvious. But as we clean up on aisle 7, just understand the stuff going on with Biden and the investigations of Biden, they have not stopped. But what does that What happens when you look at the narrow majorities in the House? We have just enough people to make that happen. Barely. And even though George Santos may have aggravated the crap out of a lot of us, and I don't know that he's guilty or innocent because he hasn't been proven one or the other, I can smell smoke from here, but you know what I'm saying. That majority got slimmer. We only get to do those things to clean up that part of the swamp if the rest of the stuff we have in place stays in place. Who else has been indicted, though? Who else has faced this while they're in office? So Santos has been indicted, right? Not just charged, not convicted, just charged. Well, you've got, how about Representative, by the way, this is bipartisan, absolutely bipartisan. Of the, 541 members of Congress right now? 541 members if you count the 5 territories like Guam and the Virgin Islands and all of them. 541 members, keep in mind there's a very small handful that have actually got issues like indictments, all right? And that we're talking about spread out over time. George Santos, of course, you know, that was 13 federal counts. And by the way, I'll cover those in a little more detail later as to what they were because, yeah, it's pretty gross. Representative Jeff Fortenberry, he was a Republican from Nebraska. He was convicted in March of 2022 for concealing information and making false statements to federal authorities. Speaker Kevin McCarthy asked for his resignation, and he gave it. Representative Chris Collins, Republican from New York, arrested for insider trading in August of 2018, charged with conspiracy, securities fraud, and wire fraud. He resigned from Congress and then pleaded guilty, began his sentence, but he was actually pardoned by Trump. Representative Duncan Hunter, Republican from California, indicted in August 2018 on charges that he and his wife had converted campaign funds to their personal use. He was sentenced to 11 months in March of 2020. He was also pardoned by Trump. Representative Corrine Brown, Democrat, Florida, indicted in fraud charges in July of 2016 related to the use of an education charity. Lost her re-election bid, sentenced to 5 years in prison. And of course, there's Senator Bob Menendez, who has gold bricks in his closet, literally gold bricks in his closet that came from Egypt. He's already, by the way, gotten out of certain charges in the past. This is not his first brush with the law. That's why some people are concerned that this might really be the one that takes him down. I say concerned not in the bad way. If he's guilty, take him down. And then there's Representative Chaka Fattah, of Democrat of Pennsylvania, indicted in 2015 on racketeering charges, several schemes intended to further his political and financial interests by misappropriating federal, charitable, and campaign funds. Yep, 10 years in prison. I'm just saying, they are out there. But when you take into account what I just said, these are the last 7 members of Congress spread out over a period of about a decade that have these indictments. There's 541 members of Congress total. If you're one of those that says it's all of them, put that thought away because it's not. But at the same time, what did George Santos do that drew the ire of his own party for the most part, that got him expelled from Congress as one of only 6 people in the history of the United States? Well, coming up, we'll talk to Mo Brooks about how that went down, what he thinks about it, and then we'll unpack it a little further before we finish up this dipper. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, well, I'm bringing somebody on who's a friend of this show. He's been on multiple times. Our former Congressman Mo Brooks from the 5th Congressional District in northern Alabama has represented this state, his constituents in both the state legislature and in Congress. He is also an attorney, and he's a granddad, which is probably the best title he's got. So, Mo Brooks, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just enjoying the good life. Watching all these shenanigans in Washington from afar. It's a lot more fun doing it that way.
It is. You don't have to dip your feet in the water to see everybody else getting wet. So let me ask you this. Mo, I don't know if you heard me talking earlier or not, but I spent some time elaborating on the fact that, so George Santos last week, and the guy had problems. I mean, he had issues, and I recognize that some of the things being said, the ethics committee had reviewed his case, and they believed that there was, real fire where the smoke was being smelled. But I look at it and go, he also wasn't convicted, and it's the first time in the history of the United States that without a conviction, somebody was expelled from Congress. Give me your thoughts on this, how it went down, and what you're thinking is going to happen next.
Well, first, the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, doesn't require a conviction. We can punish members of the House for, quote, disorderly behavior, end quote, and you can pretty much expel members of the House for any reason, so long as there's two-thirds concurring. So that's the legal standard set forth by the United States Constitution. In some, it defers to the House of Representatives when they want to and do not want to expel anybody. So it's a very, very broad standard, but it's not used much because of the old saying, but for the grace of God go I. Yeah. So a lot of those congressmen, they don't want to do it unless there's substantive reasons. Now, we have an ethics committee, and the ethics committee is made up of half Republicans and half Democrats, no matter what the floor split is, no matter who has a majority, okay? So it's 50-50 on the ethics committee. And they did their own investigation, and it was substantial. 172,000 pages of documents were examined.
Wow.
They heard from over 40 witnesses. Now, this is unusual for the ethics committee to do this kind of investigation. And after they did all this work, they, by a unanimous vote, so both political parties said that Santos was guilty of, first, knowingly filing false campaign reports in violation of federal law, second, knowingly converting campaign money to personal use, of course, in violation of federal law. Third, knowing violations of the ethics laws that govern members of Congress. And then fourth, knowingly committed fraud. So this is the ethics committee's verdict, and it was unanimous. The ethics committee also mentioned that Santos was offered to, but he refused to provide any exculpatory testimony, and he did not properly respond to requests for any documents that Santos might have that would either be exculpatory or not. And so, based on all that, the Ethics Committee, in a unanimous vote, and the House concluded on the House floor that Santos' conduct constituted, quote, egregious violations, end quote, of federal law and House rules, and that second, Santos was no longer fit to serve.
Well, so I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that he was represented by counsel and was probably advised not to provide testimony based on his Fifth Amendment rights not to incriminate himself in a future, criminal proceeding.
In a criminal proceeding, but you as a lawyer know that your refusal to testify in a non-criminal proceeding is evidence of guilt. Now, it's not conclusory evidence of guilt, but it is evidence of a guilty mind.
Yeah. Well, so he kind of almost defaulted his way into the situation as opposed to getting out there and fighting for his own position. Well, I mean,
With all the bad conduct that goes on in Congress, I wish they'd be a lot more aggressive in policing our own. But unfortunately, the House has a history of being very, 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 very lax and looking the other way.
Well, and so you bring up a great point. Within the context of what you just said, I mean, I went down a list of those who have been actually indicted on criminal charges during their terms of office over the last decade, and it's a handful. It's we're talking about 7 or 8. And I don't want to minimize their actions. What I'm saying is, in the preponderance of the numbers of Congress, it's a small number. However, you make the point that Santos was the guy who was indicted, found, brought up on charges before the ethics, and they found their own level of guilt at their level. But there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on that never gets called on the carpet. Have we just seen the rules revised? Is this Republicans putting a new standard in place and being the only ones willing to clean their own house? Or is this, what is this?
Yes. The Republicans are being a little bit more aggressive in policing their own. Now, in fairness, the Democrats have put a pretty good amount of pressure on Republicans to do this. If the Democrats had not put that kind of pressure on the Republicans, probably the Republicans would have done what historically has been done and wait till the easy button has been pushed, and that's where there's been a jury verdict or a judicial verdict of guilt. That's the easy button. The harder button, the harder course of conduct, but the one that is probably one that should be followed more often, is where we conduct our own investigation. And if we are convinced that this kind of egregious conduct has been committed by the member of the House, then we don't wait for anybody else, because the judicial system is often quite slow. We don't wait for anybody else. We don't wait for more damage to be done by this individual who's engaged in this sordid behavior. We expel him.
Well, so let me ask you this, and because I don't know the answer. Does he have an appeal right of any kind in this expulsion?
No.
None at all. Okay. So he's
Well,
out.
I guess he could file a motion to reconsider if he was in the House, but he's no longer in the House. So it requires someone else to file a motion to reconsider that vote, assuming for the moment that there was not a motion to reconsider immediately after the vote was taken, which is often done just as an exercise to make sure that that's the final vote, that there won't be another vote.
Yeah, and lay it on the table so it's done away with.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So Santos is out. Let's talk about, our Alabama delegation, by the way, which I'll maybe cover in more detail later. Out of our Alabama delegation, Robert Adderholt from the 4th Congressional, he voted along with Terry Sewell, our lone Democrat, for the expulsion. The rest of the Alabama delegation voted no. Your thoughts on that?
I am very, very proud of Robert Adderholt's vote on this particular issue. It was a tough vote because it means you might lose a Republican congressman, but to me, it is the correct vote. And I'm one of those who looks at the long term, also the short term, but the long term is what's most important. And if we will convince the public that we're going to do the right thing, even when it's one of our own that is hurt, I think we're more likely to win elections. But right now, there's huge distrust of both political parties. And hopefully, this conduct by the Republicans will alleviate that to some degree, although it would have been better if the Republicans on the House floor were unanimous like the Republicans in the Ethics Committee were. But on the House floor, it was almost a 50-50 split. So that doesn't send the kind of we are ethical message to the voting public that I wish we had sent.
Did the Speaker of the House have any sway over when it came to the floor, or was this a procedural vote that happens as a matter of right?
I'm sure the Speaker of the House had some sway over when it comes to the floor, but I don't know the details of that, and I don't know how much sway. But he is the Speaker of the House. Yeah. So he's got a lot of persuasive
He's got some sway, something. Well, and I guess the last piece of this, too, before we hit a break, is I look back at things like Eric Swalwell knowingly, having a relationship with a suspected Chinese spy, and then Pelosi keeping him on the House Intelligence Committee. At the very least, to your point, I think Republicans are indicating that they are willing to go down the road of cleaning their own house, which I hope when it comes time for the impeachment proceedings that may be looming on Biden, that people recognize that if we'll clean our own house, you can trust us more when we're cleaning the rest of the house.
Yeah, we've got a problem there, though.
What's that?
Again, that ethics committee is split 50-50. I don't know that the Democrats have ever given us a single vote to do something about a Democrat who is engaged in egregious conduct.
Oh, I agree.
So that's the difference, say, with the Nixon resignation after the impeachment by the House.
Yeah.
Is the Republicans said this is bad conduct. Contrast that to Bill Clinton, where he committed perjury in a judicial proceeding, and the Democrats wouldn't join us.
Yeah, I know. It boggles the mind. I mean, I said at the state level when I was in the state Senate, we dealt with all of the stuff going on with Governor Bentley at the time, and I got all the lampooning from my liberal cohorts, and I finally said to them one day, well, I hope you'll notice, though, that it's a Republican supermajority that is taking care of the issue. And they didn't know
we
what to say to that.
Republicans tend to be a lot more ethical than the Democrats, as evidenced by our having done things to our own, whether it be Richard Nixon as President of the United States or George Santos as a member of the House of Representatives. But I don't know of a single example in which Democrats have conducted themselves in a fair and partial manner similar to what we have done.
Yeah, we even removed our own Speaker of the House most recently. So there's that. All right. Hey, listen, we're going to take a break right now, Congressman, but you've apparently got some thoughts on even perhaps, I don't know about the legalities, but the fine nuances of what happened with Florida State. So I'm going to bring you back in a minute. If you don't mind, we're taking a break right now. And then I want to get your perspective on that, because I'm sure it's well studied. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, just making it cool to be a conservative. Going back to the phones real quick with our friend Congressman Mo Brooks. All right, so Mo, so you did some studying. Change the subject now. You did some studying on the situation that has Florida State fans enraged and Alabama fans relieved. What is going on?
If you follow the rules that the NCAA has instructed the playoff committee to follow, they had no choice but to make Alabama one of the top 4 teams. Okay? Record is important, but that's not the goal. The goal is to determine what the best 4 teams are. By way of example, Liberty University was undefeated 13-0. They won their conference. Does that mean that they should have gone in rather than Texas? Of course not.
Unless you're a Liberty University fan.
Liberty's not a better team than Texas. Okay? But here are some of the things that I'm sure that the committee considered that caused them to conclude that Alabama was the better team. One factor was record. FSU won that, so put a checkbox next to FSU's name. They went undefeated 13-0. Alabama was 12-1. But another factor they are instructed to consider is schedule strength. Alabama had a far tougher schedule than Florida State did, so that's a checkbox in favor of Alabama. Both teams won their conferences, so that's an even mark. The big killer with FSU is the loss of a key player. A bunch of those games that Florida State won were with a key player who was the MVP of the ACC. That's how good he was. And he's gone with a broken leg. And since then, against both Florida and Louisville, Florida State has shown a significant drop-off in capability, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And so you've got one factor in favor of Florida State, but almost all the others go in favor of Alabama. And then to top it off, to exclude the Southeastern Conference, which is what Florida State wanted done. I mean, think about it. The last 17 years, the SEC has won 13 times. The whole rest of the NCAA, all those other conferences have won 4 times. 13 to 4 over 17 years. So you're going to exclude the SEC, and this year the SEC had the best percentage of wins against non-conference teams of any conference in America, and the most total wins against non-conference teams of any conference in America. And then perhaps the icing on the cake is this: it's the ACC's own fault. There were other conferences that wanted the 12-team format to be in play this year, but the ACC fought it and helped delay it.
Okay.
So they got toasted on their own spit.
All right. So cogent analysis on your part, a thorough thread there.
See what I can do now that I'm retired? I can have fun.
So, all right, let me ask you this question though. I'm not a hard sell, by the way. I've been an SEC fan all my life. Auburn has actually been my team, but I don't know that we can rely upon historical precedent as grounds for who gets to go in this year, even though we are the SEC and everybody wishes they were us. But then I look at the other thing, the one thing you said in there that seems so subjective that I think, give the rest of the team some credit, is the idea that if one player is down, I got 2 minutes left, by the way, one player's down, that factors into whether or not you get selected. I think that's the one that's causing the most heartburn right now. It feels very subjective at that point.
It is subjective. The whole thing's subjective. That's one of the nice things about NCAA basketball. They bring in 60-something teams. Anybody who's got a prayer of winning that tournament is in that tournament, with money playing the role that it has played with the bowl games and the political influence that the different bowl games have had with the NCAA over the years. We haven't had a playoff system in college football. Now we're starting to get one where it's actually settled on the field instead via opinion. You know, for most decades, who was the NCAA football champion? Well, it was a poll of AP writers and coaches.
That's right.
It was a poll. It was an opinion. It wasn't one on the field. It was one in the minds of people who cast votes.
you have argued your motion well. I will say that I find there might be some genuine issue of material fact that prevents you receiving a ruling as a matter of law. So motion for summary judgment may in fact be denied.
You're entitled to your opinion, just like this committee.
Congressman, as always, we love you and appreciate you. Thank you for being on today. All right.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
All right. Take care now. That's former Congressman Mo Brooks from the 5th Congressional District, who still has his hand in the political fray. He is actually very involved in a leadership position with the state Republican Party in the district level, and still also, by the way, able to call in and opine at length. All right, listen, we're going to come back and wrap this topic up. I got several text messages to catch up on, and then we'll be switching gears at some point here in the next few minutes, going to number 2 on the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it, How's that work? Like, what did they find in the basement of that church? I don't think that's a church building campaign. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. And I mean, y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, holding on the lines during the break, let me grab it right now. Jeff Rowe from Indiana, how are you doing, brother?
Doing great, Phil.
Well,
back to work again anyway.
How's your sweet wife doing? Is she back to jogging?
She's hobbling around the house anyway.
Well,
she's in a little pain, but well, you've been through it. You know what she's like.
I do. Yeah, you just you feel like your knees got like somebody's tied a sock around it, and you're just having to try to work through the feeling of this. Well, anyway, I'm glad she's doing better, bro.
Yeah, well, they flushed it with water. They put water in there when they did the thing there. And she's basically got water on the knee now.
Oh, she's got true water on the knee.
Go down.
And and the weird thing is, it goes away by osmosis, which is also kind of weird. But anyway, what's on your mind today, brother?
Hey, as Republicans, we're going to have to start fighting fire with fire. I mean, we're going to have to quit being timid and saying, well, that's just not the way we do things and stuff, and start acting more like Democrats as far as the shouting people down and everything else about Bob Menendez. We need some people in the gallery that go up there and holler and scream and get escorted out and everything else. And I mean, we need some coverage. I mean, seriously, they don't know. Nobody knows about it because it's not getting reported on the news. Because my mom watches all the big three networks and stuff, and she told me all about the New York representative, but she had no idea that Bob Menendez had anything going on.
Yeah. I think the last time we had somebody jumping and shouting in the gallery, it turned into the January 6th debacle that they still like to call an insurrection. So,
well,
I mean, they took issue, I would say. How about that?
Well, we need to fight fire with fire. I mean, and just like and things like when Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my God.
We need to cry out. Well, if you vote for Democrats, you apparently like Jim Crow laws because as far as I know, I don't think any Republicans ever wrote any Jim Crow laws.
No,
but the Democrats did.
Hey, and did you see?
We need to do some education.
Did you see, by the way, that? And it's kind of caught people off guard, but the new Senator Fetterman is calling for Menendez to be ousted from the Senate. Did you see that?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. And yeah, it's kind of nice having somebody that's not quite all there, and he don't know when to keep his mouth shut. And he apparently don't know which party he's with.
I saw one headline that said that the stroke he had has turned him into a conservative. As his cognitive ability has resurfaced, he's realized he's actually a conservative. I don't know that that's true.
Maybe it's just making him truthful.
Yeah.
That's all. It would be nice just to have a truthful Democrat once in a while.
He's got no governor right now. Exactly. Literally, no physical governor on what he says. All right, man. Where are you at right now? You driving?
Just leaving Falkville, heading north.
Falkville, just heading. Well, all right. Well, be careful on the road, man.
That's where the yard is. That's where I come to every day.
That's a heck of a drive, but we're glad you do it.
Oh, I wish somebody else could do it for me. I'm getting too old to do this stuff.
Nah. Age, that's a crutch. Come on, man.
I'm just waiting for them to make me have an electric vehicle or something. That way I wouldn't have to do all this stuff because I wouldn't have the range.
Well, when it does, I want to ride along so I can get a video of how well that goes.
Oh, nope. You're very welcome. You're invited.
All right, man. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. So, by the way, I'm going to wrap this up with a few things here that I've got in my stack that I'm going to get to. You heard me mention, by the way, that U.S. Representative Robert Aderholt from Alabama was the only Republican from Alabama who voted in favor of expelling George Santos. Here's his comment. It's a lengthy one. I'm going to read about 2 paragraphs here, but he says, Congressman Adderholt, he says, voting to expel a member of Congress is a very solemn action that I do not take lightly. Many of my Republican colleagues voted no, and I understand how they could come to that conclusion, especially in light of the fact that since the Civil War, the House has not voted to expel a member of Congress who has not been convicted of a crime. Each member had to review the facts and come to their own conclusion, but that being said, as I reviewed the House Ethics Committee report with all the changes that were made against him, all the charges that were made against him, George Santos was given multiple opportunities to defend himself and explain the allegations that were made against him, yet he refused. And then he goes on, I'll skip a couple of sentences here, but he says, I don't believe that even a slim majority in the House should excuse such gross unethical conduct. Politics should not be considered such a matter. Moreover, I also had to ask myself, if a member from the other side of the aisle was facing the same situation, would I vote to expel? And I found myself reaching the same conclusion. Members of Congress must be held to the highest of standards. This was an unprecedented situation, and I believe this required unprecedented action. That's Alabama Congressman Robert Adderholt on why he voted in favor of doing away with George Santos. You may be asking, and I'm going to conclude with this. What is it Santos did? I mean, what did they find? I mean, if you've got stories that I'm sitting here in front of me with, stuff like Swalwell did not lose his position on the Intel Committee despite the fact that he was, involved with a suspected Chinese spy. I mean, she was literally known as a honey trap. And he wasn't taken off his committee, much less anything else. Well, first of all, there was no crime per se. But secondly, was he co-opted? Yes. But you also got to remember who was in charge. Nancy Pelosi made the committee assignments at the time, and Swalwell was taken off his committee when McCarthy became Speaker of the House. So there's that. McCarthy also removed Adam Schiff from his committee on House Intelligence because of his constant leaking and grandstanding regarding things on the Russia and collusion investigation, saying that there were things that were there that were never there. So yeah, there's that. But Santos, what is it he was alleged to have done? I have to say alleged to have done. Well, the first thing he did was file false reports. Why is this a big deal? Apparently he was claiming amounts of fundraising that he didn't actually have because by doing so, he could elevate his personal numbers to get up to a level that would bring in national matching from the National Republican Party, or I guess it was probably for the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee. If that's the case, then he was fraudulently filing reports in order to get gain from others for his campaign. There's that. Well, how does he do that? Well, one of the ways he did it was, allegedly, he was taking credit card donations, taking the credit card information, and making more charges to those cards later. Charges beyond what had been authorized. He literally got to the point that we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, to include, oh, by the way, making false loans to his campaign in order to be able to pay himself back later, but also in a way that would also inflate his numbers. And I'm telling you, folks, it's if these things are bad, I mean, they sound bad, that's because they are. You want to know that the person who is holding office got there the right way, doing the right things, claiming the right numbers. But instead, what we got right now is, goodness, how much we got? 1 count of conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States, 2 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the FEC, 2 counts of falsifying records, 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of access device fraud, 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, 2 counts of making materially false statements, and he's due back in federal court or actually he already appeared in federal court and pleaded not guilty. All right, there you have it. There's some analysis. Clean up on aisle 7. More to come. We'll go ahead and take a break right now, about a minute or two early. So you stage it out, and when the music starts playing, we'll take that break. But yeah, I think the end result here is that Republicans are truthfully more earnest about the idea of cleaning up after themselves and others. Democrats, what's my friend Dale Jackson always say? Dang, it's good to be a Democrat. Yeah. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, shifting gears when we get back. How's that work? I'm going to tell you some stories. Y'all stay tuned. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, wow, making common sense like a superpower. Hey, by the way, you hear the ads playing during the breaks, right? Just know this. Rightside Radio is a standalone entity. We are a business unto ourselves. We send our show to the stations you may be listening to us on. And part of the way we support our business operations is by selling ads. So if you are at all interested in making sure that you, as a right-side ruffian who has goods and services for the public, want to get in front of an audience filled up with thousands of right-side ruffians, well, here we are. So if you'd like to advertise on Rightside Radio, you don't contact the station direct, you call us. You go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. Click on the advertising and contact tab. Send us a message. We will be in touch shortly. And I'm going to tell you right now, we've got a ad sales rep who is hot on it. So you want to advertise on Rightside Radio, we would love to have you on the team. Rightsideradio.org. Send us a message. We'll go from there. I got several text messages I got to catch up on. So, wow. Okay, there's more than I thought there were. Let me scroll through and get a few of these. John C. from Madison says, it seems like Republicans always try and clean house, which is fine. However, Democrats still have Menendez, and I wonder why that is. That's because they don't want to clean house. They don't. They never do. I don't recall them ever wanting to, period. It's what's good for thee and not for me kind of stuff. Joe from Birmingham, Saturday Night Live said George Santos was the devil. Well, Saturday Night Live is not necessarily a legal authority, but they are. They did have quite the hoot. What did they made it out of parody of I think it was of Santos himself singing on a piano like Elton John singing "Scandal in the Wind," like that.
Yeah, they may not have much value of insight. Probably haven't in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah,
but yeah. They
lost their mojo back when I don't know, Dan Aykroyd left or something. I don't know, but anyway, it's made myself sound old. Tracy from Athens. So if Santos goes, doesn't that mean Menendez goes too? Same question. One would think those are the rules. However, that's House and Senate. And keep in mind, who's in charge in the Senate? Democrat Schumer is in charge of the Senate. So I would suspect that Menendez is probably going to be gone, but he's not going to be gone anytime soon, and they're not going to be leaping for the opportunity. What?
So I am curious. That brings up how many Democrats on the Ethics Committee in the history of the Ethics Committee have found not guilty or whatever the determination is for a Republican. Does that make any sense?
You mean how many times have the Democrats on the committee?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're playing politics, they're always going to be like, "Oh yeah, he's guilty," because it opens up the door to get rid of him.
I cannot answer your question.
I'm curious.
You have
somebody do some research.
Open wide the doors of research that I have not yet imbibed upon. Casey from Madison says maybe the Democrat Party should oust their whole body as a way of recognizing they waged America's Civil War to keep blacks enslaved 160 years ago. Okay. I'm pretty sure historical precedent is not what we go on, but there's that. Britt from Athens says this is why the expanded playoff is the answer. Put all those teams on the field and settle it here. Every other division of football does it. Every other division of sport does it.
That's the way the Republicans and Democrats should solve this. Absolutely right.
Put them on the field.
Oh, he's talking about football. Sorry.
Yeah. We're
back and forth. I'm with you.
FSU, Alabama. Yeah, okay. John from Huntsville says, Phil, tell Mo Brooks there actually is an argument that could be made to put Liberty in the national championship because they beat New Mexico State 49-35 to win their conference, which is a team that Auburn lost to 31-10, which means that Alabama barely beat a team that lost to New Mexico State 31-10. John, I should have had you here to debate the congressman. Next time we'll set that up. Richard from Madison says, dang, Democrats got it good. Richard, I've heard that somewhere. David from Huntsville says, easy to be a Democrat, terrible to support the Democrat Party. Fair enough. John from Lexington, South Carolina, your old stomping grounds there,
Amen.
Butters. He says, why not Congressman Jamal Bowman? That's a great question. Says he purposely pulled a fire alarm to stop a House vote, a felony. He was later found guilty of a misdemeanor. Can't believe the Democrats voted en masse to expel a gay Hispanic. And is he gay too? And so basically, they just, anyway, call him out, man. John from Brownsboro says, so Fetterman, in an effort to speak coherently, is speaking in complete sentences and espousing a conservative agenda. I know, man. Didn't see that coming, did we? Speaking of didn't see that coming, Butters, the next section that we've got here, Dipper number 2. I hold in my hands a series of stories. They may actually surprise, they may actually uprise, they may actually bemuse, and certainly might confuse. That I just did that off the cuff, by the way.
I'm impressed.
This,
I'm one of those words right now. I can't choose.
I'm all of those words as I read these stories. Let me ask you this. If you were going to do a church building campaign, trying to make sure you could, add on for the student youth center or the, I don't know, new Sunday school rooms, what would you anticipate would be a novel way of raising money for the church?
I'm scared.
I hold in my hands. Come on now, guess me one. Guess me one. Guess me one.
I mean, well, just ask.
That's not novel. I do that all the time.
How novel? You're making me, choose a novel idea on the spot, huh?
How about this? Putting a marijuana grow farm in the basement of the church. Whoop, whoop. I point to you a local story that a friend of mine gave me last night at our church small group. WSMV.com out of Tennessee. Massive marijuana grow operation found inside a Tennessee church. Investigation slowed by possible booby traps. This is serious business.
Wow.
So how's this work? I mean, okay, it says a massive marijuana grow operation was found inside a Tennessee church after a weeks-long investigation, according to Stewart County Sheriff's Office. Hey, can you look up, see where Stewart County, Tennessee is? Is there a major municipality there? It says a search warrant was taken out against the church on Highway 46 in a town called Indian Mound by the Sheriff's Office. The investigation was launched a few weeks ago when neighbors of the church complained about a smell. I bet. They had to sample the product. The church was originally built as a Methodist church, but was bought and turned into a, quote, new place of worship. Whatever that means. Where's that?
It's up in the northwest corner, very northwest corner of the state of Tennessee.
Northwest, high above Memphis, that area?
Yeah.
All right, so just so you know, it used to be Methodist, but I guess part of the split says it was bought and turned into a new place of worship. I'm pretty sure they saw the Holy Spirit on a regular basis. It says the sheriff's office looked into the property's electric bill, came out to like $3,000 a month, and then found a very high water bill, but had to take longer than expected due to the possibility of booby traps. Deputies found about 2,000 plants when they raided the facility. Sheriff's office says that it just shut down the largest marijuana grow in county history in the basement of a church. I'm going to imagine they were not holding Sunday services. I don't know. Your thoughts?
I take it that growing marijuana is illegal still in the state of Tennessee.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
One would have to imagine the church building campaign just took a hit with the sheriff's office raiding the facilities. Just saying. Coming up next after this break, I will ask Butters once again to chime in as to what he thinks should or should not happen with an inclusive ceremony with regards to a menorah. It's Hanukkah. It's an inclusive ceremmery. Wouldn't you think they would be included? Well, we'll talk about that when we
put
get
on
back.
your yarmulke. It's time to celebrate Hanukkah.
We're doing How's That Work? number 2 on the Triple Dipper. By the way, can felons now vote in Michigan? Tell you all about it. How's that work? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3, which is hard to believe. I'm in a section right now calling, how's that work? All right, let me ask you this question there, Butters. I know you're a Navy guy. I'm an Army guy. I was not an Academy guy. You were not an Academy guy.
No, I was an Auburn guy.
You're an Auburn guy. I was South Alabama, ROTC guys. But I assume on the weekend of the Army-Navy game, you would care about, whether Navy beat Army.
That's a pretty big deal.
That's a pretty big deal. Did you ever go to an Army-Navy game?
I never made it up there.
No, I haven't either. I've kind of always wanted to, just because of the atmosphere that's generated. I love how the services also wear special uniforms that day to honor. Anyway, a lot of folks, though, you know the deal. How many times have you been on a military installation and they're flying their flags outside of their quarters? And sometimes you'll see banners go Army beat Navy, or just the other way around. All right, so. There are people that plan, just like every other game, like the Iron Bowl, like everything. People that plan for a year or more in advance to make sure they're there. They set aside time. They even go through travel agents to get their tickets and their hotels. So, go figure. Biden's border policies are crushing attendance at this year's Army-Navy game.
Pray tell, how are they doing
Pray tell.
that?
I was going to say pray tell. Pray tell, how are they doing that? Because Foxborough, Massachusetts, which is where it's going to be played, Senator Joni Ernst is blasting the Biden administration, according to a story here from Washington Examiner, that says that literally we are seeing direct harm to military families, in her words, after veterans and their families who are traveling for the Army-Navy game are finding massive amounts of hotel reservations canceled due to a need to house illegal migrants.
So they're not just having trouble finding hotels, they're getting canceled.
Canceled, dude. Canceled. Like, here's one travel agent said that at least 70 of the reservations that he had made well in advance for the event in Foxborough, where the game's being held, were canceled under Massachusetts' right to shelter law.
Wow.
Which has allowed hundreds of families, it says, to be put up in hotels, most of whom are migrants. So yeah, you can plan your trip way in advance. You can be ready to celebrate the day of days for your football rivalry. And come to find out, you don't have a hotel room. You may be flying in and you're the one sleeping in a tent. Go figure.
I mean, I get,
how does that work?
Obviously, if you take it at face value and, you're bringing in people that need shelter, but they're there in the first place, should they have been there? It is just a football game, but that's a huge, that's a lot of money that's going to come in that for that game, and that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
It is crazy, and you know what happens though is every once in a while you find these hotels that scarf it up because they're getting a guaranteed government income off of it. But at the same time, these are folks who came here illegally, who then wound up in a community, who are now taking from people who have earned the opportunity to be there, and I can't help but wonder, though, if there's 70 people in those hotels, 70 rooms being taken up in these hotels, are people being told ahead of time, oh, you're arriving at a hotel, by the way, which has signed a contract with the U.S. government to house illegal migrants. So just so you know, there are going to be families of migrants dominating the rest of your floor. I mean, how would they feel about that?
Yikes. There's so many aspects to unpack on this. Like, I'm curious how the hotels are going to, how are they going to weather the, I know they see dollars, but and
I wonder,
what kind of occupants are they going to, or is this the government try to kind of force them to take them?
When they start doing things in the hotels that damage the hotels, which is not unheard of.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say they all come over here with zero,
Absolutely.
personal hygiene habits, or they're trying to cook in the rooms, but a lot of them do.
Yeah.
A lot of them absolutely do. They're trying to save money. They don't know where to go to get food, and so they are cooking in their rooms and doing whatever else. Next thing you know, the whole place is just, in trouble. And anyway, how's that work? I don't know that it does work, to be honest with you. All right, next story I've got in the How's That Work segment. Wouldn't you believe, wouldn't you love to believe that if something builds itself as an inclusive opportunity, that means that everybody's welcome? Just asking. Would that be something you would expect to hear? The answer is yes. As you stare at me like I'm leading you down a primrose path, it's not a trick question. It's real. So so National Review has a piece that came out yesterday. A group called Love Light Placemaking.
I'm lost already.
Love Light Placemaking, the organizer of the Second Sundays Art and Music Festival in Williamsburg, Virginia. Williamsburg, by the way, is a beautiful city. I had family that lived there. And anyway, has canceled a scheduled Hanukkah celebration, including the lighting of a menorah on December 10th. The decision follows concerns related to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Yeah, Shirley Vermillion, is that really her name, Vermillion? Have you ever met anybody with the last name Vermillion?
I haven't, but I haven't met everybody.
It sounds like a drag queen name. Shirley Vermillion, the festival's founder, cited logistical challenges and sensitivity to the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. Her quote, "The concern of folks feeling like we are siding with one group over the other, not a direction we ever decided to head." She emphasized the festival's inclusive nature and mentioned scheduling conflicts, as well as a reluctance to have the festival engage in religious activities. So I would say if you are enhancing your status by claiming an inclusive nature, that being exclusive is generally to be found contra to your statements.
So is this a Jewish festival?
No, it is not. It's a community thing.
That's telling Jews that they cannot light a menorah.
Yeah, we ain't lighting your menorah. We're concerned it might not be seen as inclusive. How about this? If you're really that concerned about it, do another one later on for whoever is protesting, and see who shows up. It says the United Jewish Community of Virginia Peninsula expressed shock and alarm at Love Light Placemaking's decision. The organization to clarify that the menorah lighting, led by a local rabbi, was not political, had no connections to the Israel-Hamas war, and they argued that it's anti-Semitic to hold Jews collectively responsible for Israel's policies. I do not contest their statements. All right, let me ask you this. If and which one do I want here? Hang on a second. I'm going for this one.
Choose wisely.
That's one of my favorite lines from, that would be Last Crusade.
Yes.
Indiana
Very
Jones.
good. Very good.
He chose poorly. All right. Teachers' unions. Butters. Why do they exist? The clock is on. Ding dong, ding dong. Ding dong.
Ensure the best education opportunities for our young people in our schools.
You would be wrong. They exist for the collective efforts of the union members, period. That's it. Don't ever forget that. But wouldn't you think, though, that in the process of their collective bargaining efforts, that they're after things like raises and vacation days and benefits?
I would think so.
Would it surprise you then to find that in Portland, see, I opened the door, it's Portland. Now I should have told you Portland up front. You would have guessed all kinds of things. Would it surprise you then to find out that in Portland, as a part of the collective bargaining effort, that the Portland Public City Schools has now agreed with the union to allow for what it calls a support plan for students which need discipline. That means that they must, in a disciplinary consideration, take into account the student's race, gender, or identity or sexual orientation, and restorative justice that may be applied for the student. Restorative justice. The new disciplinary policy also eliminates mandatory suspensions for students who threaten or harm others. All right, so here's the bottom line. Story off of freebeacon.com. In Portland, if you are a black gay kid who assaults another one, you are not going to be expelled, and you are going to have to have a place, what they call a support plan written up for you that takes into account all the reasons why your life might have been hard and the things that you chose to be a part of might have made you a certain way. And now, what are we going to do with you? We're going to try and love you back with restorative justice. How about this? Just treat everybody equally. Make sure they understand the consequences, and skin color and your predilections on your sexual orientation do not matter. And guess what? I guarantee you discipline comes back into place.
So does that mean that if you're a straight, white, say middle-class male, that like you just get expelled at random just because?
That's what you get being a cis white male for asking those questions. Just saying.
That's...
Parents Defending Education Senior Advisor Michelle Exner slammed the Portland Public Schools and the Portland Association of Teachers for their absurd disciplinary policy changes. And yes, this was part of the collective bargaining effort. The union asked for these things. That's the union playing agendas as opposed to worrying about what's good for education. Last thing I'll say on this topic, because we got a heavy one we're going to try and get to in a minute. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has signed into law a series of measures designed to help the election processes in Michigan. Would you trust the outcome of this that I'm about to read you? Mm-hmm. It's Michigan. Mm-hmm. It's Gretchen Whitmer. The answer would be no. We have no reason to trust it. Whitmer signed a package of bills on Thursday that provided additional people the ability to sign up to vote, like ex-convicts and teenagers. I don't mean like teenagers 18 and older. I mean like 16 and 17-year-olds. The first bill would allow eligible individuals to vote in an upcoming election after they are released from prison. The package also criminalizes the intimidation of poll workers, regulates political advertisements that use artificial intelligence, and tightens the election certification process to ensure that former President Donald Trump or his supporters cannot disrupt it. I don't even know what that means. Washington Examiner, by the way, is not a liberal rag. They're usually fairly conservative. I cannot for the life of me figure out what that means, tightening the election certification process to ensure Donald Trump cannot. I guess what they're saying is we're going to count the votes and we're going to count them in a way they can't claim later on we did something wrong, which is what you kind of want in the first place. And then, oh, by the way, how's that work when it says they're going to do things like, criminalizing the intimidation of poll workers, which is already the law.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. And then...
You lost me at we're going to make the already existing process a better process.
Well, when Gretchen Whitmer signs it, I'm usually distrustful right there on the spot.
Yeah, wow.
All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back in a moment. We're going to the last part of the day. I got some text messages to catch up on. And Dipper number 3, get ready, folks. Flashpoints. Things that are happening around the world that you better pay attention to because they're the kind of things that could blow up in a heartbeat. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, wow, like saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, I'll tell you who else is saving the world just one person at a time is our friends at the Elm Foundation, ELM, the Elm Foundation. They're based out of Huntsville. Y'all, they're a 501c3 that is using what I would call conservative principles to really go out there and make a dent in bringing people back to a place of productivity and a sense of self-worth by restoring them to a place where their productivity is re-engaged with life. And I mean, when I say that, it sounds flowery, but what I'm saying is they're literally getting people off the streets, giving them the assets and the tools they need to re-engage life, and then, you know, helping them find jobs, getting them back into a place where they have housing. And oh, by the way, this is not like the government throwing money at something and hoping it sticks. I mean, the folks at the Elm Foundation, they are trained to do this. They will walk people through the process, and they'll give them accountability, and they'll tell them when they're not hitting their milestones. I mean, I think you would enjoy it. We had them in studio a while back. Amazing interview. It was great to hear what people are doing that is literally making a difference and is doing a far better job than pretty much any government program you could imagine. So yeah, the Elm Foundation. This is the year end, by the way. We're coming down to the end of the year. A lot of folks thinking about their charitable giving, where they want to put some dollars towards the end to help good causes. Well, the Elm Foundation is a 501c3. You can find them on their website. It's ELMHSV. That's Elm, ELMHSV.org. Check them out. And by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. That's Elm Foundation, ELMHSV.org. I got some text messages. I reckon I better catch up. Rich from Muscle Shoals, with regard to that story a minute ago, says Williamsburg is gonna, well, if my texture would refresh. If my texture would refresh. How many times do I have to say it? If my texture would refresh. There we go. Said Williamsburg is going to have a Festivus. Says, I'll bring the aluminum pole. Phil, can you handle the feats of strength? I've got some problems with you people. It is time for the annual airing of the grievances. Festivus. That is an instant cultural classic right there.
Man, we're all up in the 80s and 90s TV programming. This
Are you calling me old without calling me old?
No, I'm right there with
you. Tom from Auburn says, I would welcome the cancellation of my hotel room. My wife and I had reservations in a Denver hotel filled with migrants. Very terrible experience. We'll be very careful from now on, even if we even come close to a sanctuary city. Wow. That is wow. That's not good. Brian from Huntsville says the Santos Claus is leaving the town. Ha ha ha. Then he says marijuana grow in a church basement with a taco truck out front. Well, you know, dinner on the grounds took on a whole new meaning. And then he says, angels we have heard on high. Brian can always be trusted to find them. Jim from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, I guess they were the Church of the High Order. Yes, there it is. Wow. They're all coming in now. Marcus from Huntsville says, I would prefer a marijuana grow operation from a drag show to raise money for a church, LOL. I just think we ought to have neither one. But okay, I get it, man. All right, let me jump over here. I'm gonna switch gears on you, get a little more serious. We're coming back after this break. We're gonna spend some time talking about flashpoints. All right, and this is, and you know, as lighthearted as that last segment was, and even some of those text messages, I got to tell you, you're gonna want to hear some of this, because some of it is things you know, some of it is so fresh you might not have heard it yet, and others are things that are flying under the radar, but they are truly creating flashpoints. Flashpoints, those places where just the wrong thing said or done could create something far bigger than what was ever intended. You go back and look at history, the wars like World War I, when the Crown Prince was assassinated, the whole world blew up. So all I'm saying is this: some of these flashpoints, they're worth keeping an eye on. They're legit, and it's not a small thing, y'all. Some of these that I'm about to read out to you are actual overt attacks on U.S. troops. Some of them are covert attacks attributed to foreign bad actors right here on infrastructure in the United States. Yeah, Phil Williams, Flashpoints. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just like covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama. And I mean, y'all, whew, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I tell you who else covers a lot of ground, is our friends at Southern Immediate Care. So Southern Immediate Care is an expanding chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of our big listening area. I mean, they got locations in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations in and around the Birmingham area. I think the 2 newest ones were Chelsea and Hoover. In fact, I believe they are expanding further, is my understanding. But all that to say, Southern Immediate Care opens 7 days a week. 7 days a week. So you wake up on a Saturday morning, someone's got a fever. What do? Wait till Monday? No. You go to Southern Immediate Care. You find the location nearest to you online, and you head on down there. But let me just tell you though, and I say this with all sincerity, this is who I use, and I've been using them longer than they've been advertising. In fact, they're advertising because after my experience using them, I said, "Would y'all please consider advertising on my show? I'd be proud to have you as a sponsor." And here they are. So every time I've gone in the front door of a Southern Immediate Care facility, it's like clean, friendly, professional, get you in and get you out. You can get your shots, your x-rays right there on the spot. You check them out. Southern Immediate Care, owned by a Rightside ruffian, by the way. Southern Immediate Care. Find the location nearest to you and do me a favor. Tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, flashpoints. We're going to spend a little time unpacking Dipper number 3 as we close out the day. Listen, y'all, this is an ongoing conversation. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time I have done a segment and called it Flashpoints. It's because the flashpoints continue to evolve, and then new ones arise, and then at the same time, you look at them and go, that one is still as edgy or edgier than it was before. Iran is probably one of our biggest flashpoints right now. Iran in general. Why? Because Iran has fingers in the conflict in Syria, the conflict in Iraq, has fingers in the conflict in Israel and Gaza, and with Hezbollah coming out of Lebanon. It has its fingers into the Houthi rebels that are shooting at U.S. ships right now off the coast of Yemen. I'm just telling you, Iran in itself is a flashpoint. You may recall that some months ago, there was talk of the Biden administration making sure that the Iranian government had access to like upwards of $10 billion. Woo, why? I don't know. We thought they might need it. Well, that made no sense to the rest of the world. You might want to know this, though. Locally speaking, our friend Yaffe wrote for Yellowhammer News that Alabama's House GOP delegation voted to block Iran's access to $6 billion. So, yeah, it says, with the help of Alabama's Republican congressional delegation, the U.S. House has voted, story that came out over the weekend, to freeze $6 billion in funds to Iran. In a bill that was sponsored by U.S. Representative Michael McCall, who I think is from Texas. It's passed 307 to 119. Only one Republican voted against it. I'd like to know who that was. Anyway, the bill blocks Iran from ever accessing the $6 billion that was recently released to the country by Biden in a prisoner swap. This $6 billion, money's fungible. Why would we fund the government of a country that is sponsoring proxy wars with us and our allies and destabilizing an entire region while they also try to get nuclear capability? The bill now heads to the democratically controlled Senate, where Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has not yet said whether he will bring it up. The only thing we got going for us in that is that Schumer has been very pro-Israel in all of this. He might bring it up. Although it's an election year and he's such a political animal, don't bet on it. But what else is Iran doing? You know about the Houthis. You know about Hezbollah. You know about Hamas. You know what they did by putting together Badr brigades that were helping fight in the Mahdi militia that was helping fight U.S. forces in Iraq. Heck, they've even got issues going on in Afghanistan. How about this? Iran, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Butters did a double take. Your face said it all. A small Western Pennsylvania water authority was just one of multiple organizations that was breached in the United States by an Iran-affiliated hackers who targeted specific industrial control devices because they were Israeli-made. So here's the bottom line. I won't try and read the whole article to you. Small town water authority using a device called a Vision Series programmable logic controller made by a company called Unitronics. It's an internet-based, basically what it is you can access, the guys who run the water authority can access it online and check the water flow and up and down, the levels as needed. But once you hack into it, you have access to the water system and you can thoroughly disrupt the capabilities of local communities to receive potable water. But it's not just there. So we know that multiple water authorities and other entities were hacked by a group that calls themselves the Cyber Avengers, but they are known to be affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which we designated a foreign terrorist organization under the Trump administration. There are over 200 internet-connected devices being used like this in industries like energy, food, beverage manufacturing, and healthcare. Trial run on small town Iranian hackers, not good. It's happening right now. That story, by the way, came out yesterday.
Well, they're not looking to build to go toe-to-toe with us. They're looking for the biggest bang for the least amount of bucks, or using our bucks to apparently do it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Here's $10. Use it to buy something nasty to hurt us. But I would say, too, this is another form of terror.
Oh, yeah.
When you find out that hackers just did something to your water system in a small town America, that's not like somebody flew a plane into a building, which was bad, which was awful. This is like going to the core of small town America. All right, let's get to one that I know that you're keenly interested in. Former Navy guy, did a lot of time on carriers. Pentagon officials, post-millennials where I pulled this one, Dateline yesterday. Pentagon officials have confirmed that an American warship and multiple commercial vessels were attacked in the Red Sea on Sunday, Houthi rebels in Yemen taking credit. So it was the USS Carney. It's an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer. Rocket attacks, drone attacks. But apparently this article is almost benign compared to what we were seeing on the news earlier today, man.
Yeah, I saw actually a tweet, if you're really interested, CENTCOM, who is the command that owns the Middle East.
Central Command.
Yep, so they've got a full list of about 3 or 4 ships, a couple that were attacked and several that were actually hit. The Carney intercepted, shot down some UAVs, so that's crazy because that's going to make shipping expensive.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Dangerous is one thing, but then you also raise the cost of all the goods that go. How much goes through the Suez Canal?
So what I did a quick fact check because us Navy guys we're very keen on that, but 30% of the cargo traffic goes through the Suez Canal. 30% of the global.
Of the global?
Yes, of the global shipping traffic for container ships flows through there.
Isn't the Suez where that ship got wedged out of line?
Like Austin Powers style. Yeah. Wow, another dated movie.
So now we got Iranian-backed forces that are attacking U.S. forces and world shipping in one of the most incredibly important straits of passage. And then you've got Iranian-backed hackers attacking cyber events, in and around the United States and small-town America. And then you got China. How about another flashpoint? Can I lay that on you right before the break?
Oh, yeah.
Why not? So China is now taking issue. And I asked you before the break, too. What do they call those? Freedom of what? Freedom of navigation?
Freedom of navigation, yeah. Where if somebody declares to be beyond or beyond 12 nautical miles, we'll intentionally go in there and go, oh, yeah, what are you going to do about it? We have the legal international right to be here.
Which a lot of folks don't realize. China has been building man-made islands in the South China Sea in order to claim that expands their territorial waters.
Absolutely.
And so then we just go sailing.
Yes.
and give them the old, the old
As,
middle finger
as best
salute.
we can. Yep.
Yes.
And fly airplanes through.
And fly airplanes through. However, China is taking issue. Story on Fox that came out this morning. U.S. Navy responds after China claims that American warships illegally intruded into the South China Sea. The Chinese military ordered its naval force to mobilize and track the USS Giffords on Monday after China claimed the warship violated its sovereign waters. The U.S. deliberately disrupted the situation in the South China Sea, seriously violated China's sovereignty, says China. The U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet denied the accusation, saying the ship was conducting routine operations in international waters consistent with international law. This is one of the littoral combat ships, I guess probably built in Mobile.
Yep.
But that being said, flashpoints. If you have something happen that threatens the water supply to citizens of the United States by Iranian hackers, flashpoint. If you have Iran getting more irritated because they can't get the billions that Biden told them they could, then Houthis fire more missiles into the, where am I talking about? Is that into the Red Sea?
Red Sea is where several of these are reported.
And then on top of that, you've got, Hezbollah just sitting north right now of Israel, thinking about what they can do. And oh, by the way, they're not silent. They're still firing missiles, just kind of being sporadic with it. If Hezbollah gets engaged, that whole situation is far more, vibrant at that point. But then on top of that, you've got, which one do I want to pick from? How about this? I've got one of our NATO allies. People don't realize how contentious our relationship with Turkey is right now. Keep your eyes on Turkey, because Erdogan, the president of Tayyip Erdogan, who's the president of Turkey, is kind of out there. Y'all don't think for a second that he is truly our friend. He's a NATO ally on paper, and he's an ally when it suits him, and he is not an ally when it comes time to go ahead and be an extremist. Erdogan himself is claiming, here we are supporting Israel. Fox News has a story that came out this morning. Turkey's Erdogan says that Netanyahu will face war criminal trials after the Israeli-Hamas war. Yeah, so he is, this guy is like a Muslim Brotherhood kind of guy. And Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan claimed on Monday that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be tried as a war criminal after Israel's war against Hamas is concluded. He does not recognize, Erdogan himself does not recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization. He's been deeply critical of Israel's campaign. He compared Netanyahu to the genocidal dictators of the past during a recent speech at the Organization of Islamic States. I'm just telling you, flashpoint, here's the thing. Turkey, on the border of Syria. We have conflict in Syria that we are still engaging in. Turkey hates the Kurds. Who's our biggest ally in the war in Syria? The Kurds. Kurds believe that they should have a right to what's called Free Kurdistan, which envelops a piece of Turkey and part of Syria. Erdogan does not like that. Erdogan winds up mounting efforts against our allies. We have troops that are working with them, and then the whole thing becomes a flashpoint. And now you've got Erdogan, who is daring to say, oh, by the way, that ally you've got in the Middle East, Israel, I want that man tried for war crimes. Flashpoint. I'm just saying.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's a crazy world, and Biden's in charge of our stuff right now. Take me to a break before I hyperventilate. All right, we're taking a break right now. Yeah, I'm just saying. Flashpoints. Do not think for a second that just what's on the major headlines are the ones you should be watching. I think sometimes it's the things that are happening on the sub-stories. Go look for them. Educate yourself on the flashpoints around the world. Keep your head on a swivel. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Wow, like making common sense like a superpower, I like to say. Hey, by the way, I tell you who else got a lot of common sense, almost like a superpower, is our friends at ZLA Solutions. So ZLA Solutions, like epic good at what they do. And what they do is help you make your business better. So ZLA Solutions with businesses that are all over our listening area, and beyond. They are doing all kinds of things to help them improve their business processes and to do the things that it takes to get them streamlined and more productive. But then one of the things they also are really known for is staffing, like helping the people find the ones that they need to do the jobs they've got. So if you need one or two people or a whole shift of people, ZLA Solutions, they can help you with that. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing. I always say blue collar, white collar, and no collar. It don't matter. So yeah, ZLA Solutions. Check them out. Their website is zlausa.com. That's ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. And do me a favor, tell them like you heard on the Right Side Radio, and tell them a lot. All right, tell you what, I'm going to wrap this up. Got a couple of text messages that I'll get to before we go. I've got several. I've got stuff here about, Kamala Harris wanting to revitalize the Palestinian Authority, which is actually an organization that still supports terrorism. How about when AC-130 gunships took out militants that were trying to attack U.S. forces in Iraq? That happened most recently. I think the two stories that I'll end on, though, are the flashpoints, Dipper. Daily Signal has a piece that came out over the weekend. Hamas leader threatens Israel, says that October 7th was just a rehearsal. Okay, so defiant to the end, I guess. But then again, why shouldn't we just believe him? You're talking about an organization that, in defiance of all realms of reason and decency and humanity, used rape as a part of its, attack plan. That's who we're dealing with. These are monsters and thugs and liars. But they're not lying about this, in my opinion. Yahya Sinwar, who made the threat first in public, he recently came out and said the leaders of the occupation should know. And he claimed that what happened on October 7th was just a rehearsal. The attack, by the way, was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Hamas murdered 1,200 people, took 240 as hostages, including women, children, and elderly. And then this just irritates the crap out of me. U.S. drone thwarts militia attacks on American troops in Iraq. Story that came out yesterday. Pulled this one off of airandSpaceForces.com. U.S. conducted a drone strike in Iraq. That doesn't bother me at all. Why? Because we were taking out militants who were trying to attack U.S. forces. Hellfire missiles fired from a MQ-9 Reaper drone, along with other airstrikes, took out a number of militants as they were preparing to launch an attack on U.S. forces. Here's the thing. Further down the article, you read this statement. At first, the U.S. limited its strikes to Iran-backed militias in Syria, or limited them to Iran-backed militias in Syria, even when some of the militia attacks occurred in Iraq, to avoid roiling the politics in Baghdad. But now, the U.S. appears to be more willing to take action in Iraq to protect its roughly 2,500 troops in the country. How about this? Step up, President Biden. Don't dilly-dally. Don't look at it and go, well, they're attacking our forces, but I don't want to make anybody mad. That's exactly what you just heard me read. That's the interpretation. Well, we've been holding off because, we're trying not to make anybody mad in Baghdad. We don't want to upset them. Screw that. These are your U.S. troops. These are your U.S. troops that are there under a status of forces agreement. I guarantee you. You've got a U.S. status of forces agreement with the nation of Iraq, and that involves us being there under certain conditions. If those conditions are threatened, guess what? You take unilateral action. You don't wait. You just do what you got to do to protect your people. But no, he's going to go ahead and go blow up an arms depot with nobody in it in Syria when we were having troops attacked in Baghdad. That makes no sense whatsoever. Flashpoints, folks. Flashpoints. All right, listen, what a day. What a full day. A full day. And we're back here tomorrow for another full day. You guys stay tuned. We love you. We'll see you back here tomorrow, too. Have a great night.